bathroom door slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed off the tiles. Samantha Peterson's heart hammered against her ribs as Tyler Morrison twisted the lock. Click. The sound was final. Absolute. 3 boys. 1 exit. No witnesses. "No cameras here," Ethan Harrison said, stepping closer. His breath reeked of energy drinks and arrogance. "No teachers. Just us." The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across Ethan's face. Behind him, Marcus Chen cracked his knuckles, the sound like breaking bones. Tyler stayed by the door, shifting his weight from foot to foot. But his nervous energy didn't make him any less dangerous. And if you want to help me share more of these inspiring stories about standing up to bullies, there's a thanks button below where you can buy me a coffee. Every little bit helps me reach people who need to hear that they're not alone in facing crazy situations. Samantha's back pressed against the cold porcelain sink. She could feel every ridge of tile through her thin sweater. 3 years of high school invisibility shattered in this moment. 3 years of walking the halls like a ghost, eating lunch alone, keeping her head down. All of it led here, to this windowless box that smelled like industrial cleaner and teenage aggression. "You've been disrespecting us," Ethan continued, moving closer. At 6'2". He towered over her 5'4" frame, walking around like you're better than everyone, like you don't see us. But Samantha saw everything. She saw how his weight shifted to his left leg, favoring an old football injury. She saw Marcus's stance, too wide, leaving his ribs exposed. She saw Tyler's hands shaking slightly, adrenaline making him sloppy. 8 years of training had taught her to see. What nobody at Westfield High knew was that their quietest student, the girl who flinched at loud noises and never spoke unless called on, spent 4 hours every day in a converted warehouse on the south side of town. What they didn't know was that inside her backpack, buried under calculus textbooks and history notes, were 3 regional championship medals for youth Muay Thai. "I don't want any trouble," Samantha said, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine like ice water. Her hands stayed loose at her sides, open, non-threatening. Coach Sullivan's words echoed in her mind. "Power without control is just violence." Ethan laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "Should have thought about that before you ignored me in the hallway yesterday, before you acted like I don't exist." Yesterday. She remembered. She'd been rushing to chemistry, mind focused on the periodic table quiz, when Ethan had called out to her. She'd kept walking, not out of disrespect, but because engaging with Ethan Harrison never ended well for anyone. "Just let me leave," she said. "This doesn't have to happen." "But it does." Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice deeper than Ethan's, but carrying less authority. He was the muscle, not the brains. "See, when people disrespect Ethan, they disrespect all of us. And that requires correction." The word hung in the air like a threat made physical. Samantha's breathing shifted, became deeper, more controlled. 4 counts in. Hold for 4. 4 counts out. Combat breathing. Her body preparing for what her mind still hoped to avoid. But to understand how Samantha Peterson ended up cornered in a 3rd-floor bathroom by 3 of Westfield High's most notorious bullies, you need to understand why a 9-year-old girl first walked into Sullivan's gym with tears in her eyes and murder in her heart. It had been a Tuesday evening in October, the kind of night where the air smelled like dying leaves and distant rain. Samantha and her mother were walking home from Morton's grocery. each carrying 2 bags of groceries. Her mom was humming something. Probably that song from the radio she liked. Samantha was thinking about the chocolate chip cookies they'd make together after dinner. The men came from the alley between the pharmacy and the abandoned print shop, 2 of them, wearing dark hoodies, moving fast. Too fast. "Give us the purse," the taller one had said, pulling out a knife that gleamed under the streetlight. Now, her mother had pushed Samantha behind her instinctively. "Take it," she'd said, holding out her purse with a shaking hand. "Just take it and go." But they didn't just want the purse. The shorter one grabbed her mother's wrist, yanking her forward. She cried out, dropping the groceries. Cans rolled across the sidewalk. A jar of pasta sauce shattered, spreading red across the concrete like blood. "Pretty lady like you probably has more at home," he'd said, his breath visible in the cold air. "Maybe we should walk you there." "Please," her mother begged. My daughter." That's when the taller one noticed Samantha, frozen behind her mother, eyes wide with terror. "Oh, she's got a kid. How sweet." What happened next would replay in Samantha's nightmares for years. Her mother fought with the desperation of a parent protecting their child. She clawed, bit, screamed for help that wouldn't come. The men were stronger. They slammed her against the brick wall. Once, twice, the sound her head made against the bricks was wet and final. Samantha stood there, paralyzed. Every self-defense lesson from school, every stranger danger warning evaporated. She was a statue made of fear, watching her mother crumple to the ground like a broken doll. The men ran when they heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called. They took the purse and disappeared into the night, leaving a 9-year-old girl kneeling in spilled groceries and her mother's blood. Her mother survived. 3 weeks in the hospital, 2 surgeries, a metal plate in her skull that would set off airport scanners for the rest of her life. But the woman who came home wasn't the same one who'd hummed songs while making cookies. This one jumped at shadows. This one triple-checked locks. This one looked at the world like it was full of wolves. And maybe it was. "I want to learn to fight," Samantha had announced at breakfast a month after her mother came home. She'd practiced the words in her mirror, made them sound strong and sure, even though inside she felt like shattered glass. Her father had looked up from his coffee, exchanged glances with her mother. "Sweetheart, what happened wasn't—" "I stood there," Samantha interrupted, something she never did. Good girls didn't interrupt. But good girls also didn't watch their mothers get beaten while doing nothing. "I just stood there. I was useless. I'm never going to be useless again." They tried karate first. The sensei was nice. The uniform was crisp and white, and the forms were pretty. But pretty wasn't what Samantha wanted. She wanted devastating. She wanted to become the kind of person who could have saved her mother. Then came the boxing gym that smelled like sweat and leather. Better, but still not right. The coach kept trying to make her movements smaller, more appropriate for a young lady. It was her mother, surprisingly, who found Sullivan's Gym, a converted warehouse in the industrial district. No sign outside, just a heavy bag visible through grimy windows. "I asked around," her mother had said quietly. "If you're going to do this, you're going to do it right." Coach Sullivan looked like he'd been carved from granite and left out in bad weather. Scars crossed his knuckles like a road map of violence. His nose had been broken so many times it had given up trying to heal straight. When he looked at 9-year-old Samantha, tiny in her oversized t-shirt and untied sneakers, He didn't smile. "Why are you here?" he'd asked. Not to her parents, to her. "I want to learn to hurt people who hurt other people," she'd said, the words coming out harder than she'd intended. "Wrong answer." He'd turned away. "Come back when you want to learn to protect people who can't protect themselves." It took her a week to understand the difference. When she came back, he was waiting. "I want to be strong enough to stop bad things from happening," she'd said. He'd nodded once. "Better, but strength isn't just muscle. It's here." He tapped his temple. "And here." He tapped his chest. "You learn control first. Power comes later. Power without control is just violence. And I don't teach violence. I teach warriors." The first year was hell, while other kids her age were playing soccer and having sleepovers. Samantha was learning to wrap her hands properly, to pivot on the balls of her feet, to take hits without crying. Coach Sullivan didn't go easy on her because she was young, or small, or female. "The world won't go easy on you," he'd say when she complained about the bruises. "Neither will I." By the time she was 12, she could throw combinations that would make grown men step back. By 14, she was competing in underground youth circuits, always under pseudonyms, always in different cities. Her parents thought she was at math camp, debate tournaments, Model UN. Instead, she was in warehouses and gym basements, learning what it felt like to really hit someone, to be hit back, to keep fighting when your nose was bleeding and your ribs were screaming. She never told anyone at school. As far as Westfield High was concerned, Samantha Peterson was nobody. The quiet girl who got straight A's and ate lunch in the library. The one who walked quickly through the halls with her head down. Who never went to parties or football games or dances. It was safer that way. Coach Sullivan had drilled it into her. The best fighters never have to fight. Real strength is knowing you could destroy someone and choosing not to. Which brings us back to the bathroom, to three boys who had no idea they'd cornered a regional champion, to the moment when 3 years of carefully maintained invisibility shattered like safety glass. "Last chance," Samantha said, her voice different now, lower, calmer, the voice she used in the ring when she was about to demonstrate why weight classes existed for a reason. "Back off." Ethan must have heard something in that voice because he hesitated, just for a second. Then his ego kicked back in, that poison mixture of privilege and testosterone that had made him the terror of Westfield High since freshman year. Nobody said no to Ethan Harrison. His father was the police chief. His family owned half the commercial real estate in town. He'd been starting quarterback until a DUI crash that somehow got swept under the rug left him with a permanent limp and a shorter fuse. Now he channeled all that athletic aggression into making other people's lives miserable. Marcus Chen had attached himself to Ethan like a remora to a shark. 6'1" and 220 pounds of muscle and insecurity. He'd been a decent kid once, before his parents' divorce, before the anger issues, before he found out that being Ethan's enforcer meant nobody messed with him either. Tyler Morrison was the wild card, skinnier than the others, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. He wasn't naturally cruel like Ethan or angry like Marcus. He was just weak. And sometimes that was worse. Weak people did terrible things to feel strong. The pattern had started small. Comments in the hallway that Samantha pretended not to hear. Books knocked from her hands that she'd quietly pick up. Her locker vandalized with words that would have hurt more if she hadn't heard worse in underground fighting rings. She'd thought she could wait it out. 3 more months until graduation. 3 more months of invisibility. Then college somewhere far away where nobody knew her name or her secrets. She'd been so careful for so long. But bullies were like sharks. They could smell blood in the water from miles away. And somehow, despite all her training in reading opponents, Samantha had missed the signs that she'd become their primary target. It started 2 weeks ago. Tuesday. She'd been leaving chemistry when Ethan appeared at her elbow. "Hey, Peterson," he'd said, falling into step beside her. "Never see you around. You too good for us regular people." She'd kept walking, eyes forward, hoping he'd get bored. He didn't. "I'm talking to you." His voice had hardened. "You deaf or just rude? I have to get to class," she'd muttered, speeding up. He'd grabbed her backpack, yanking her to a stop. "Class can wait. I'm trying to be friendly here." That's when she'd made her mistake. For just a second. She'd looked him in the eye, really looked at him. And he'd seen something there. Some flash of the fighter she kept hidden. His eyes had widened slightly, then narrowed. "There you are," he'd said softly. "Knew there was something weird about you." Since then, it had escalated. Daily harassment, her homework stolen, her car keyed, obscene messages left in her locker, photos taken without her permission and posted online with cruel captions. She'd reported it once, to Vice Principal Coleman. He'd given her a tired look and asked if she'd considered being more social. "Sometimes, when we isolate ourselves, we invite negative attention," he'd said, like victim blaming was a valid educational philosophy. Coach Sullivan had noticed something was wrong. Hard not to when your star student started holding back in sparring, pulling punches she normally threw with bad intentions. "Whatever's going on outside these walls," he'd told her after a particularly lackluster session. "You handle it, or it handles you. But you don't bring it in here. This is sacred space." She'd wanted to tell him, wanted to explain that 3 boys at school were making her life hell, and every instinct screamed to fight back. But that would mean admitting she was weak, that she couldn't handle some high school bullies without violence. So she'd smiled and promised to focus better. Yesterday had been the breaking point. Thursday afternoon. She'd overheard them in the hallway. She'd been at her locker when Ethan's voice carried around the corner. "Tomorrow," he was saying. "Third floor bathroom after second period. Nobody uses it. No cameras in that wing." "You sure about this?" Tyler's voice, uncertain. "She needs to learn respect," Ethan replied. "Besides, it's not like she's gonna tell anyone. Little Mouse doesn't even talk." "What if she fights back?" Marcus had asked. Ethan had laughed. "Peterson, look at her. She probably weighs 90 pounds soaking wet. Could break her with one hand." They'd walked past without seeing her pressed against the lockers, heart racing, fight or flight instincts screaming. She could have gone to the police, but the police chief's son wasn't getting arrested. Could have told her parents, but they'd been through enough trauma. Could have simply not shown up to school. But Samantha Peterson was done running, done hiding, done pretending to be weak when she'd spent 8 years becoming anything but. So she'd come to school, sat through first period calculus and second period English like normal. And when the bell rang, when she saw Ethan watching her from across the hall, she'd made a choice. Not the smart choice, not the safe choice, but maybe, finally, the right choice. She'd walked to that third-floor bathroom knowing it was a trap, knowing they'd follow, knowing that 3 years of carefully maintained invisibility was about to end in violence. What she hadn't known was how good it would feel to finally drop the act. "I'm done talking," Ethan said now. stepping close enough that she could see the burst blood vessel in his left eye. Probably from his latest drinking binge. "You're gonna learn what happens when you disrespect me." He reached for her, hand moving toward her throat, and time slowed down the way it did in the ring when everything clicked into place. 8 years of muscle memory took over. Her weight shifted. Her hands came up. But that's when everything went wrong. Because Tyler, nervous, twitchy Tyler, decided to be helpful. He moved from the door, trying to flank her, and in that split second of divided attention, Ethan's hand found her throat. The sensation of fingers closing around her windpipe brought back every nightmare, every memory of her mother's terrified gasps. Panic flooded her system, washing away 8 years of disciplined training in a tsunami of pure fear. "Not so tough now. Are you?" Ethan squeezed harder, lifting her slightly off her feet. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. Marcus was moving in from the left, Tyler from the right. 3 predators closing in on prey that had forgotten it had claws. Coach Sullivan's voice echoed in her fading consciousness. "Fear is just your body getting ready for war. Use it." Something inside Samantha Peterson snapped, but it wasn't her spirit breaking. It was the cage she'd built around the fighter within. Her knee came up in a movement so fast, so violent, that Ethan never saw it coming. It connected with his groin with the force of 8 years of suppressed rage. He doubled over, gasping, his grip on her throat loosening. That's when she made the decision that would change everything, as Ethan hunched forward, vulnerable, exposed. Samantha Peterson planted her left foot, pivoted on it like she'd done 10,000 times in training, and chambered her right leg. Time stopped. In that frozen moment, she saw it all. The trajectory, the impact point, the consequences. She could pull back, could run, could still salvage some piece of her carefully constructed anonymity. Instead, Samantha Peterson threw the kick that would send all 3 bullies to the hospital and make her name legendary in the halls of Westfield High. The roundhouse kick connected with Ethan's jaw with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. The sound of Ethan's jaw breaking echoed off the bathroom tiles like a gunshot. His body lifted off the ground, spinning in the air with a grace he'd never possessed in life. For a moment, he seemed to float, suspended between cause and consequence, before crashing into the toilet stalls with catastrophic force. The porcelain shattered. Ethan's head snapped back, connecting with the pipe behind the toilet with a wet crack. Blood exploded from his nose and mouth, painting the white tiles in abstract patterns of violence. His body went limp, sliding down the destroyed stall wall like a marionette with cut strings. "Ethan!" Tyler screamed, his voice cracking like he was 13 again. "Oh God, Ethan!" But Marcus was already moving, rage replacing shock on his face. "You crazy bitch!" He charged like a bull, all 220 pounds of muscle aimed at crushing her against the sink. But rage made him sloppy, telegraphed. Samantha had fought bigger opponents in the ring, ones who actually knew what they were doing. She slipped his tackle, using his momentum against him. As he passed, she drove her elbow down into his kidney with surgical precision. He screamed, stumbling forward, and she followed up with a knee to his floating ribs. The crack was audible. Marcus dropped to one knee, gasping. "Stop!" Tyler shouted, but his voice held no authority. He was backing toward the door, hands up, eyes wide with terror. "Just stop! We're sorry." "Sorry," Samantha's voice was calm, terrifyingly so. You planned this. I heard you yesterday. Third-floor bathroom. No cameras. No witnesses. Marcus tried to get up, driven by stupid pride and damaged masculinity. Samantha's foot swept his supporting leg. He crashed face first into the tile, his nose exploding in a fountain of blood. She grabbed his arm as he fell, twisting it behind his back in a lock that had him screaming. 3 years, she said, applying pressure. 3 years of your harassment, your cruelty, your... Tyler made his move. Maybe he thought she was distracted. Maybe he thought he could be a hero. He rushed her from behind, trying to grab her in a bear hug. 8 years of training included situational awareness. She heard his footsteps, felt the air displacement. Without releasing Marcus's arm, she drove her heel back into Tyler's knee. The joint bent sideways with a sound like stepping on a bundle of twigs. Tyler collapsed, clutching his destroyed knee, sobbing, actually sobbing. Like the scared child he really was under all that borrowed bravado. Samantha released Marcus and stepped back, surveying the damage. 3 boys down, Ethan unconscious in a pool of blood and porcelain shards. Marcus curled in the fetal position, coughing blood from internal injuries. Tyler crying, trying to crawl toward the door on one working leg. The bathroom looked like a war zone. Blood on the floors, walls, even the ceiling from arterial spray. The fluorescent light flickered, casting strobe-like shadows over the carnage. That's when the adrenaline crash hit. Samantha's hands started shaking. What had she done? She'd trained for competition, for self-defense, not this. Help, Tyler whimpered, finally reaching the door. He fumbled with the lock, fingers slick with blood. Somebody, help! The door burst open. Madison Harper stood there, phone already recording, her mouth falling open at the scene before her. Behind her, other students crowded, trying to see. Call 911, someone screamed. Now, call 911, now. Oh my God, is that Ethan? They're dying. They're all dying. Did Samantha Peterson do this? Phones appeared like weapons, recording everything. The aftermath, the blood, Samantha standing in the center of it all, hands still shaking, looking like an avenging angel splattered with her enemy's blood. She attacked us, Tyler gasped, playing victim even now. Just went crazy. Liar, Madison said, surprising everyone. I recorded you following her in here, all 3 of you, like you were hunting her. More students pushed in. Some ran to get teachers. Others just stood and stared. Unable to process quiet, Samantha Peterson standing over the bodies of 3 bullies who'd terrorized the school for years. Everyone back, Vice Principal Coleman's voice cut through the chaos. He pushed through the crowd and froze. Dear God. What? How? Self-defense, Samantha said quietly. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant. They cornered me. Ethan grabbed my throat. I defended myself. Don't move, Coleman said, pulling out his phone. Nobody move. This is a crime scene now. The next 20 minutes blurred together. Paramedics arrived. Rushing in with gurneys and equipment, they worked on Ethan first unconscious. Potential skull fracture, broken jaw, severe concussion. Then Marcus, 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, broken nose, damaged kidney. Finally, Tyler destroyed knee ligament. Possible permanent damage. Police arrived. Lots of them, including Chief Harrison, whose face went from professional to murderous when he saw his son being wheeled out on a gurney. Arrest her, he snarled, pointing at Samantha. Now. Chief, Officer Martinez said carefully. We need to follow protocol. Investigation first. That's my son, Harrison screamed. She nearly killed my son, and we'll investigate fully. Detective Amanda Cross interrupted, walking in. She was state police, not local. Someone had made a smart call. Miss Peterson, I need you to come with us. You're not under arrest, but we need your statement. She's under arrest, Harrison insisted. Assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder. Chief Harrison, Detective Cross's voice was steel. You're emotionally compromised. Officer Martinez will handle the scene. You should go to the hospital with your son. What followed was surreal. Samantha in the back of a police car, not arrested. They assured her, just transported for questioning. Her parents called, arriving with a lawyer before questioning began. The lawyer, Patricia Chen, took one look at the bruises forming on Samantha's throat and smiled like a shark scenting blood. Self-defense, she said simply. Clear cut. They'll be lucky if we don't sue them into oblivion. But the real firestorm was happening online. Videos from phones spread like wildfire. Not just the aftermath, but other videos Madison Harper had been recording when the three boys followed Samantha. Someone else had caught Ethan's previous harassments on camera. Within hours. Justice for Samantha was trending. Then came the flood. Other victims started posting their stories. Brooklyn Martinez shared how Marcus had cornered her after volleyball practice. Mason Thompson posted about Ethan stealing his ADHD medication and threatening him when he complained. Story after story. A pattern of abuse that had been hiding in plain sight. The tipping point came from an unexpected source. Autumn Williams, who worked in the main office as a student aide, posted screenshots, disciplinary reports about Ethan, Marcus, and Tyler that had been filed and mysteriously disappeared. Complaints that vanished from the system. A clear pattern of administrative cover-up. By morning, news vans surrounded Westfield High. The story had gone national. Bullied girl fights back, sends 3 attackers to hospital, ran on every major outlet. But the narrative was already shifting from violent girl attacks classmates to system fails victim forced to defend herself. Coach Sullivan arrived at the police station at 6 in the morning. Samantha was still there, exhausted, running on adrenaline and bad coffee. He took one look at her and pulled her into a hug, something he'd never done in 8 years of training. I'm proud of you, he said simply. You did what you had to do. Nothing more, nothing less. I hurt them bad, she whispered. Ethan might have brain damage. Tyler might never walk right again. They hurt themselves, he corrected. The moment they decided to corner you, they wrote their own endings. You just delivered the message. The investigation moved quickly. Security footage from the hallways showed everything the 3 boys stalking Samantha, forcing her toward the one bathroom without cameras. Witness testimony painted a clear picture of systematic harassment. The bruises on Samantha's throat photographed as evidence of assault. But the real bombshell came from Tyler Morrison, lying in his hospital bed with his knee in pieces. Guilt, pain medication, and the realization that his so-called friends had abandoned him led to a full confession. It was supposed to just scare her, he told Detective Cross, tears streaming down his face. Ethan said we needed to put her in her place, but when we got in there, he went crazy, started choking her. I wanted to leave, but Marcus blocked the door and then she just exploded. He revealed everything. The pattern of bullying other victims, how Ethan's father used his position to make problems disappear, How Principal Nelson got donations from the Harrison family that coincidentally aligned with disciplinary issues vanishing within 48 hours. The state attorney general opened an investigation. Principal Nelson resigned to pursue other opportunities. Chief Harrison was placed on administrative leave pending investigation into abuse of power. Westfield High brought in emergency counselors to deal with the trauma not from the fight, but from years of unchecked bullying finally coming to light. 3 weeks later, Samantha sat in a courtroom. Not as a defendant, the district attorney had declined to press charges, calling it the clearest case of self-defense I've seen in 20 years. Instead, she was there as a witness in the case against her attackers. Ethan Harrison sat at the defendant's table, jaw still wired shut, face gaunt from his hospital stay. The brain damage had been minimal, doctors said, though some joked he hadn't had much to damage. Marcus was there too, moving carefully, still healing. Tyler was in a wheelchair, his basketball dreams as dead as his knee ligament. "Miss Peterson," the prosecutor began, "can you tell us what happened on March 15th? Samantha spoke clearly, calmly. She told them about the pattern of harassment, the escalation, the trap, the moment Ethan's hands closed around her throat and she had to choose between being a victim or fighting back. "I spent 8 years learning to fight," she said, looking directly at her attackers. "So I would never have to. But they took that choice away from me. They forced me to become what I trained so hard not to be violent." Patricia Chen presented the medical evidence. Photos of Samantha's bruised throat. The pattern of defensive wounds versus offensive strikes. Expert testimony from a use-of-force specialist who confirmed every strike was consistent with trained self-defense against multiple attackers. The defense tried to paint Samantha as a trained fighter who used excessive force. They brought up her competition history, tried to make her martial arts training sound sinister. But then came the parade of victims. 17 students testified about harassment from the 3 defendants. Teachers who'd tried to report issues and been shut down. Parents who'd complained and been ignored. Jasmine Park gave the most powerful testimony. She'd transferred schools after Ethan and Marcus had tormented her for a year. "I tried to kill myself," she said quietly. "They made my life so miserable I wanted to die. Samantha Peterson did what I wish I'd had the strength to do." She fought back. The verdict was swift. Guilty on all counts: assault, conspiracy, criminal harassment. Ethan got 18 months in juvenile detention. Marcus got 12. Tyler got 6 plus mandatory counseling. Chief Harrison was indicted on corruption charges 2 weeks later. The investigation revealed years of buried complaints, intimidation of witnesses, and abuse of power. He eventually pled guilty to avoid trial, ending his career in disgrace. But the real change came at Westfield High. The new principal, Dr. Karen Mitchell, implemented a zero-tolerance policy on bullying that actually had teeth. Cameras were installed in all blind spots. An anonymous reporting system was created and actually monitored. Training for teachers on recognizing and addressing harassment became mandatory. And Samantha Peterson, she became something she'd never wanted to be famous. The quiet girl who'd hidden in shadows was now the face of anti-bullying campaigns. News outlets wanted interviews, self-defense schools wanted her to speak. Hollywood called about movie rights. She turned them all down. Instead, she started something simple. Every Saturday morning, in the gym at Westfield High, Samantha taught free self-defense classes, not just the physical techniques, but the mental aspects, situational awareness, de-escalation, the difference between fighting and defending. The first class had 5 students. Within a month, there were 50. Kids who'd been victims, kids who were scared of becoming victims, kids who just wanted to feel safe. "Power isn't about being able to hurt people," she told them, echoing Coach Sullivan's words. "It's about being able to protect yourself and others. It's about having choices." One Saturday, 6 months after the bathroom incident, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. Tyler Morrison, walking with a permanent limp, leaning on a cane. The gym went silent. "I know I'm not welcome," he said, voice shaking. "But I needed to apologize. Not for legal reasons or anything, just because it's right." Samantha studied him for a long moment. The cockiness was gone, the swagger replaced by genuine remorse. She'd broken more than his knee that day. She'd broken the delusion that actions don't have consequences. "Apology accepted," she said finally, "but apologies are just words. What matters is what you do next." Tyler nodded. Understanding, he became, surprisingly, one of the most vocal advocates against bullying at school. His story how being a follower had destroyed his future resonated with kids who might have made the same choices. The final courtroom scene came a year later. Not criminal this time, but civil. The families of Ethan, Marcus, and Tyler had sued Samantha for excessive force and emotional damages. Patricia Chen had laughed when she heard, "They want to sue a girl for defending herself against 3 attackers," she'd said. "This will be educational." It was. The case was dismissed with prejudice. The judge's ruling was scathing, calling the lawsuit an attempt to further victimize someone who had already shown remarkable restraint in the face of sustained harassment and assault. But the part that made headlines was what the judge said at the end: "Miss Peterson represents the best possible outcome of a worst-case scenario. When the systems designed to protect students fail, when authority figures enable predators, when victims are left with no recourse, sometimes fighting back is not just justified, it's necessary." As Samantha left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. She ignored them all, except one. "Do you regret what happened?" a young journalist asked. Samantha paused, considering. "I regret that it came to violence," she said finally. "I regret that 3 boys were raised to believe they could hurt others without consequence. I regret that a system failed so badly that a 16-year-old girl had to fight for her life in a school bathroom. But regret defending myself? Never." 2 years later, Samantha Peterson graduated from Westfield High with honors. She'd been accepted to multiple universities, all offering full scholarships. She chose State University, not for their academic program, but for their criminal justice degree and their proximity to home. She had work to finish. Her graduation speech was short but powerful. She spoke about transformation, how Westfield High had gone from a place where bullies thrived to a school where students looked out for each other, how sometimes the worst moments lead to the greatest changes. "I learned to fight because I was afraid of being helpless," she concluded. "But I learned something more important here, that real strength comes from lifting others up, not knocking them down. That's the lesson I hope we all take forward." Coach Sullivan was in the audience, graying now, but still granite solid. He nodded once when she finished, the highest praise he ever gave. The self-defense program Samantha started had grown beyond Saturday mornings. It was now an official part of the physical education curriculum. Every student at Westfield High learned basic self-defense. But more importantly, they learned about consent, boundaries, and respect. In the gym, a new generation of students was learning self-defense from a new instructor. But on the wall, a plaque caught her eye. In memory of those who suffered in silence, in honor of those who found their voice, in celebration of the courage to stand up, speak out, and fight back when necessary, dedicated to all students, past and present, who refuse to be victims. Below it, a simple quote: "Power without control is just violence. Control without power is just victimization. True strength lies in knowing when to use each." Coach Sullivan. As Samantha left the school for the last time, she passed the third-floor bathroom. It had been completely renovated, turned into a memorial meditation space. Where violence had exploded, peace now resided. Where fear had ruled, hope had taken root. As she drove away, her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "My daughter just started at Westfield. She's small, quiet, like I was, but she's not afraid because of what you did, what you started. Thank you." Samantha smiled, tucking the phone away. She had a shift to start, crimes to solve, people to protect. The girl who'd learned to fight so she'd never have to was now a woman who fought so others wouldn't have to. And that made all the difference. Years later, when asked about her legacy at Westfield, Samantha would think not of the bathroom fight that changed everything, but of the quiet moments that followed. The freshman who walked a little taller. The teacher who finally reported harassment. The parent who believed their child's story. She'd kept one thing from high school, a worn notebook where she'd written down every student who'd thanked her. Every life that had changed because someone finally stood up. The pages numbered in the hundreds now. Malcolm, Devin, and Tyler had all taken different paths. Malcolm worked construction, honest labor that kept him grounded. Devin had moved states away, starting fresh. Tyler, surprisingly, had become a counselor himself, specializing in anger management for troubled teens. The bathroom where it all happened was gone, but what grew in its place was so much more powerful than any punch ever thrown.